TwitchTV.
Hey gamers, this is Ed Park, aka Taugrim, bringing you my first video for Vanguard for Star Wars The Old Republic. This is the mirror to the Bounty Hunter Powertech class, so material in this video is applicable to you folks as well. The Vanguard is the advanced class version of Trooper, which is more tank oriented. As a Trooper, it shares the core mechanic of ammo. Basically, the more ammo you consume for special abilities, the slower it regenerates, so you want to be careful about this non-linear mechanic. Vanguard, being the tankier version of Trooper, has a lot of short-range abilities such as Ion Pulse, which is trainable at level 10. This is a really nice ability that is spammable and hits for elemental damage, so it's not mitigated by armor. Of the three trees, the Specialist tree is the tank-oriented tree, Tactics, which is what I've been playing, is the melee short-range tree, and Assault Specialist is the dot heavy tree that provides a lot of mobility debuffs on your opponent. If you want to get a sense of the mechanics for any tree, look at the 31-point talents and the 11-point talents, and those will tell you a lot. In my case, the buffs are provided there by a short-range melee attack called Gut at 11, and then another hard-hitting 10-meter range ability at 31. I can use a guard ability as a Vanguard, but only if I'm using the Ion Cell stance, and you do have to use a cast time in order to switch stances for the Trooper class. This is a little different from the Jedi Knight Sith Warrior and the Jedi Consular Shadow and Sith Inquisitor Assassin. Notice I put the guard buff on a friendly target here, this droid, and with guard up, I redirect 50% of incoming damage from that target to me. This is a great way to protect friendly players who are taking focus fire. The Vanguard class has a number of different characteristics as far as playstyle, so I'll walk them through in this video where I'm playing a 14 Vanguard in Alderaan. One thing to note is that I can tell using the minimap how many friendlies are coming with me up to this node. It looks like I've got 3 other people behind me, so I don't have to turn and pan the camera. I just look at the minimap. I find a good point to start AoEing, and unfortunately one of my targets go ahead and strafes out of it, but a lot of damage is done. I open up here with a stun and then a high impact bolt on a target. The idea here is to try to blow them away as quickly as possible and allow us to get the cap on the node. Remember, PvP is always about a numbers game, so sometimes you want to blow your cooldowns aggressively to pressure the other side and get the advantage. So you can see as I'm moving in and out here, I'm trying to use high impact bolt when it's available. You have to kind of watch your skill bar to see when it's activatable. So if a target has a debuff or is stunned or incapacitated, you can use high impact bolt. It does have a long 15-second cooldown, so you want to use it as much as possible. Right here you notice that I counter strafe my opponent. My opponent is going counterclockwise around that pillar, so I go clockwise. And this is important because you can cut down a quarter to half a second on a target running around a pillar and enable you to fire off your global cooldown earlier. Now, whenever possible, when I close the gap to a ranged DPS opponent, I want to hit Stock Strike, which is the rifle butt. It has a 6-second cooldown and crits for about 1900. Right here, I'm getting into a little bit of problems from the opponents who keep coming down to the Alderaan central node here, so I go ahead and back up. As I'm cutting away, I use my stun, fire high impact bolt. Again, you want to use high impact bolt as often as possible, and you know there are times in this video where I don't leverage it as much as I should. Right here, the 5 incoming opponents, and I get charged, so my channeled AoE ability gets interrupted. So it's really important not to face tank multiple opponents like this and put your healers in a tight situation to keep you alive. And remember, we're holding this middle node, so there's no reason for me to put myself at risk. We just need to defend it. The onus is on our opponents to try to kill us and cap the node. You notice whenever I'm closing the gap from 10 meters out, I'm spamming Ion Pulse. It synergizes really well with Tactics damage, and you can see I get a nice 1500 crit there using Ion Pulse. And again, it's an elemental attack, so armor doesn't matter. It makes all targets feel equally squishy. If you followed my guides through various games, you know I like non-physical damage for that reason. The other thing to note is I'm constantly strafing behind my target, melee strafing, and you know this will reduce their ability to have line of sight on me. Right there, I get a nice 1900 crit with Stock Strike. And like I said, it is the first ability you should try to use in melee range after you fire your high impact bolt. So we're continuing to press them here. We've now pretty much wiped them twice over at the middle node. I get a nice 2300 crit there for the killing blow with high impact bolt. So this class doesn't have the burst capabilities that you might see from a Gunslinger, for example, or Shadow, you know, per my earlier videos. But you know, it does have sufficiently good burst damage capability to apply pressure. And you can see as we were running out to this node, I was jumping up and down to see over the wall, and this provides me with line of sight with what's going on at the node. And you know, I should say when I'm in a pug like this particular video, I assume competence on the part of my opponents, but I don't assume that players on my side are going to be doing what they should be doing, such as calling out incomings, relaying information, etc. So a lot of times I use little cues like the movement of players, their dots on the map, hopping over walls to see what's going on on one of the edge nodes, etc., to give me an idea how things are looking. So we managed to cap this node, and I come over and attack this player immediately. And the reason why is you want to knock them out of their put them in combat so it drops their out of combat sprint. This will delay their ability to get to a node to defend it. Now, I can tell from looking at the map, we've over defended west right now. I go ahead and roll back toward the middle to make sure this node doesn't get overrun. And again, I open up with a stun there, followed by a high impact bolt. And the goal is to bury someone in an HP deficit. And in a lot of cases when I do this, this will attract friendly supporting fire from other players who see the opportunity to burn that character down. Right there, I get a nice 1300 crit from Ion Pulse. It is a great ability. And, if you watch a Vanguard play, this is pretty unusual compared to most classes. In MMOs, you typically either have like a melee DPS or a ranged DPS archetype. Really, the interesting thing about Vanguard is it plays as a hybrid. You have solid range capability, not great range capability, and you have very good short range and melee capability. And what I like about this is this gives me the opportunity to leverage the two things that I think I'm skilled at. One is melee or circle strafing my opponents, especially players who do not feel comfortable having a melee in their face and can't deal with them running circles around them, which is what I'll do. And it gives me the opportunity to short range strafe kite opponents who are primarily melee based, and I can kite them and burn them down, limit their ability and opportunities to attack me. This gives a really, really interesting fluid hybrid playstyle, but it's something that works. So right here, you notice I'm using Mortar Volley. I eat 2 back-to-back crits there from Shadow Strike. So, we outnumber them here, so I'm strafing to make this assassin chase me. There's no reason why I should sit there and face tank him. I should just create a gap while I get healed up, and then I can turn around and smack this opponent in the face. But again, if you're holding a node and you're taking focus fire and you have the numbers advantage, you should always strafe and let your friendlies burn them down. Right here we make a huge mistake. What I'm doing as I'm auto running is I'm typing to say, hey, one person please hold the west node. So auto run's great to be able to chat, and you can see that one guy is heading back toward the west node. We have a pretty good lead here, but what ends up happening is that one person on the west node fails to prevent a ninja cap on that node, which is unfortunate, and we do end up losing the match because of this. So a few things, it was interesting. I was talking to one of my guildies, Warstack, about Vanguard, and what he said is that is the clunkiest looking spec that I've ever seen, and it's definitely weird. Like I said, the hybrid melee ranged playstyle isn't going to be for everyone. It suits me like a glove. You just have to understand how to play it. Like right here, I get stunned. I eat a 2600 Shadow Strike, and I go ahead and start strafing away from my opponent to limit his abilities to have melee attacks on me. Plus, as long as he's in front of me, he can't backstab me. So I go ahead and move up, give him the old stock strike for a nice 900 non-crit, and then we drop him. And then unfortunately, we get run over. This is a very bad spot to get caught off, and I was planning to get over to the east node to see if I could do a ninja cap, but we got caught out in the open, and my friendly player gets killed, and then I get killed. So I come back and take a look at the east node. It's important as you're running over to a node to go ahead and grab any buffs that you see on the map, heal pots, etc. And as we come over to this node, this player does a really nice job defending it. You can see this player intelligently, this is a a Sith Inquisitor, is simply running around the node and just kiting us. So I go ahead and burn my stun, fire off a high impact bolt, and really this player just needs to stay alive. I get a nice 1400 crit there from Ion Pulse. It is a fantastic ability. And right here, the player does something really smart. They run out of line of sight, and so I go ahead and kind of cut the angle a little bit and try to get on the node. Really, this other player next to me should go over and start peeling that player, leg shotting him, snaring him, rooting him, stunning him, doing whatever he can to prevent a cap. And this player doesn't do so. And right here is an interesting mechanic. Right now, dots do interrupt your ability to cap a node, and so this delays the cap by several seconds, and an opposing Imperial player makes it over and stops us. I think this is something I hope will get looked at, because dotting up players is too easy to prevent a cap, and you can see that player that we just killed, that intelligent Sith Inquisitor, has now come back to the node, and we're outnumbered. There's no way we're going to take it. So I go ahead and switch over to the western node here. Player's at low health, and I was about to help burn down that player, but that melee drops him, and then we need to make sure to finish players off. If your defenders are at all competent, they're not going to allow you to cap a flag while they're still alive. So I'm assuming competence on the part of this player. Our opponents have been playing well. It's just that we got the early lead on them. And another player comes down from an edge speeder bike. And this is the really tough thing in this game. I like the mechanic, the way this is designed. If you hold a node, you can take an edge speeder bike straight to the node, and it makes it much easier to defend. But what's rough for us is we need sufficient focus fire to burn this player down to get on the flag. And right here, watch the player to my right. That player just to my right is in the worst possible place to cap a flag. He's in line of sight if they come from the middle or if they come in off the edge speeder bike, whereas where I'm standing, I can't be hit directly from a player who comes down the edge speeder bike. I finished tops in this match with over 160k damage and lead kills and killing blows with 31 and 13. This really shows the capabilities of Vanguard played correctly in terms of the melee and range capabilities. If you watched my streams, you saw me level from 10 to 14 strictly through Warzones, and with the exception of 2 short Warzones, I cracked 100k damage in every pug and pre-made that I stepped foot in. The 2 times I didn't were a 6-0 skunking that we suffered at the hands of 50 pre-made, and an Alderaan where we raffle stomped a bad pug that Tally got stuck in. But this is a very effective class. Later I'll get a range pull, which will be awesome. If you're looking for more information, check out my twitch.tv Taugrim channel. I will be streaming a lot of SWTOR content and interacting with the chat room. Please let me know what you think of this video. Take care.
Game Breaker TV.